Welcome to Stoppage Time. I'm your host, Carmine Bianco of WagerTalk.com. This week, on this week's show, this is our second show, Stoppage Time. We have a couple of guests on our show. We have from Sports Memo, we have Nick Borrman, and connecting with us from Europe, from WagerTalk.com, we have, we'll call him Laguretos, Pavlos. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Nice. All
right, guys, we are going to discuss on this week's show some match day 3 fixtures, Champions League, Europa League. We're not going to cover any MLS this week. We'll do that at next week's show because it's the international break right now at time of taping, so we'll have plenty of time to discuss that next week. We'll also, we're going to go through 3 games in each competition. I'll throw some games at both of you guys, and I want to get your opinion on both games. All right, listen, we're going to get going right away. I'm going to start with Nick. All right, Nick, match day 2, Champions League. It pretty much went as expected, I thought. A couple surprises, 2 or 3 games. Obviously, Real Madrid, which is one of the games we discussed before, went down 2-0 before coming back and drawing at home with Club Brugge 2-2. Leaves them with like 1 point in that group after 2 match days. And a little bit of controversy, in the news lately with Bale once again saying he wants to leave that team. But early on in the season, we see these with some of these big European sides. When things don't go well, the media picks up on it and it's in the news. Tottenham, another team, absolutely blasted, 7-2 at home by Bayern Munich. I understand Bayern Munich is a very good side, but losing 7-2 at home at Hotspur Stadium is not a recipe for success for that team. They're struggling in obviously in the EPL this season. And then we saw stuff like, the Italian side, Napoli. Napoli proving once again, something I've said for the longest time is some Italian teams, other than, let's say, Juve, in these competitions just do not carry their home form well when they travel in Europe. Napoli did that last year in Champions League, and it ultimately cost them a spot in the knockout stages in that group with Liverpool and PSG. And, getting a scoreless draw at Genk is, I think, is a huge setback for this team. Even though they're technically first in the group, they've still got big games away at Liverpool and Salzburg. And we all know the Salzburg team is a decent team. We saw them go down 3-0 to Liverpool, come back, tie that game up before ultimately losing 4-3. Nick, all right, welcome, buddy.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a few games at you. We're going to start with the aforementioned Bayern Munich. They're away to Olympiacos. I like watching these Greek Super League games sometimes, and I think it's more because of the other team, PAOK, with the owner who walks onto the field with his gun in his back pocket sometimes, which I think is hilarious. But he's got that Glock or whatever it is. But we've got Bayern Munich here. The goal line on this is Bayern Munich is a goal and a half. It's a split line wager, which obviously, if you were to bet on Bayern Munich at that line, let's say you bet $100, 50 of your bet is on Bayern Munich at minus a goal, and 50 is on Bayern Munich minus a goal and a half. If you're betting 3-way line, Bayern Munich is minus 244, Olympiacos is plus 683, and the draw is 416. And the total here is, again, a split line of 3.5. I'm dying to hear what you got to say on this one, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, you already touched on the recap from the Bayern-Tottenham game, which was, a 7-2 drubbing. The scoreline, though, honestly, if you watch that game and, looking at some of the expected goals numbers that were kind of developed after that match, definitely inflated there. They're finishing in that game was absolutely clinical. Bayern was, and to score 7, Tottenham did not play well, but they probably didn't deserve to have 7 put past them in that game. I think this line is a lot of inflation from match day 2, both from that score and from Olympiacos losing at Red Star. They led 1-0 at Red Star in that match at half. Got an early second half red card, and then proceeded to concede 3 goals there in the second half, 2 of which came in the final 5 minutes. So, things obviously probably would have been different there had they have not gone a man down in that game. I had Olympiacos in that game, so that was a disappointment. I didn't touch that Bayern game. But Olympiacos, they played well in their first match against Tottenham. I think, were unlucky, to be honest, to actually just settle for a draw in that one. They gifted a penalty and had a really bad turnover against Tottenham in the final third in that match in that first half. So they gave up 2 goals, to the Spurs in about 5-minute stretch. But otherwise, I think Olympiacos was really the better team in that game, at least through the first half. Tottenham did play better in the second half. But again, I think a lot of this line is really related to what happened in that match day too. And I think had those scores not been, if we didn't see a 7-2 win by Bayern, maybe a 3-2 win, and had Olympiacos probably settled for a draw, which maybe at worst is what should have happened there. If they didn't go down a man, I think we'd be looking at maybe a minus 1 goal instead of 1.25. So I think that extra quarter of a goal is big here. People are going to know the name Bayern. They're going to know some of the guys on that team. But they haven't been, defensively at least, in my opinion, they haven't been as solid so far this year. I mean, they just lost last weekend at home to Hoffenheim, 1-2, which, disappointing result, of course, for them. Tottenham, again, you mentioned it already. Not only were they struggling in that game, but they've been struggling for a while now. They have, 2 wins, I think, in their last 10 games overall. They just got beat 0-3 at Brighton. So I think it's inflated here. I do like Olympiacos. It's a tough place to play. They haven't lost a match there since September of 2018. And I know that, the Greek Super League isn't, a Bundesliga or a Premier League type of quality of a league, but it's still you still had plenty of decent competition go in there and not be able to walk away with a win. So I like Olympiacos. I think they'll keep it close. At worst, I'm hoping for just that 1 goal loss, and we can at least cover half the wager. But I like plus 1.25 Olympiacos here.
Yeah, no, listen, I agree with you, and a lot of the points you made about Olympiacos. And going back to that game where they held the 1-0 lead at halftime, I had the under in that game, under 2.5. And when I saw the red card, I just thought to myself, this is, as a soccer fan, as a fan of this sport, as a bettor in this sport, and someone who gives out plays, when you watch it enough, this red card is going to affect my wager. You just know it's going to happen. But the thing with this Olympiacos team is at home. They're not your typical team that with a Bayern coming in, they try and park the bus. They play their game. That doesn't matter if it's Tottenham, doesn't matter if it's Red Star, doesn't matter if it's Bayern Munich. They play their game and they try and win. And this is the one thing which I think supports your play on it, is that they aren't going to sit back and invite the attack. They're going to try and play 90 minutes of football here and see where it takes them against this team. Right, we're going to move on to another game here. We've got Benfica at home to Lyon. Lyon coming off a big win at Red Bull Leipzig. The Benfica right now is the favorite in this game. It's essentially a pick'em. I believe, or close to it on the 2-way line. I think Benfica might be a half-goal favorite. They're plus 112 on the 3-way line. Lyon is plus 242. The draw is, it looks like 242 as well. And the over-under is a split line of 2.5 and 3. What do you like here?
Lyon is one of those teams I find myself going back and forth with. They look great at times. They look bad at times. I would say they're easily the least consistent team right now as far as results go. There are 2 matches right here in the group stage. They played to a 1-1 draw in the opener against Zenit. They were the better team in that game. They had 19 goal attempts, 8 on target, compared to 12 and 3 for Zenit. Yet all they could do was to draw 1-1. And then in their last game, they go in and win 2-0 in Germany at Leipzig, who I know you like this year, Carm. And they only attempted the 2 shots on goal, which was they scored their only two attempts. And if you look at the numbers through that game and watch any of that game, it's hard to argue that that was definitely not the result based on the play of that game. So it's just they're a weird team. You look at their League One results in France, and they won their first 2 games by a combined 9-0 scoreline, and haven't won since.
Yeah.
And they have some really poor results away. So far, they have games against mid-level competition that they just have not been able to beat in their own league. So going to Benfica here in Portugal, which Benfica notoriously is a great side. It's them and Porto, right? Every year coming out of Portugal, and they're a tough team to beat at home. And I don't. Same can be said for Benfica in their 2 matches. If you look at some of their numbers and watch some of the highlights of those games, that maybe the results, which they have 2 losses in the first 2 games, maybe those results weren't necessarily justified as well. But I think Benfica here at home is the way I would look at this one. Right now, you mentioned it. Last I looked, they were quarter goal line favorite, and they're around plus 115 or so on the 3-way line, which I think provides some good value. Last year, they had a plus 46 goal differential in league play at home, which just speaks to how strong they're at home. Of course, they had João Felix last year, who left to go to Atletico Madrid. But besides that, they're still a strong team all the way down. Lyon is inconsistent to say the least, so I'm going with the consistent side here. I think, Carmen, I like getting a plus number in this one right now, about plus 115. For Benfica. So that's my play, my thoughts on this one.
Yeah, if Benfica can get obviously the full 3 points here, it still puts them behind the sort of like the 8 ball in this group, but it gives them 3 points, and it really opens this group right back up again. You'll have, I guess, Lyon with 6. You'll have if Leipzig are able to get a win in their game, 6, and you got Benfica with 3. So it opens this group right back up again. All right, we're gonna head to this team is exciting for me. I had them on match day 1 as a 5% play. Another Red Bull team, of course, Red Bull Salzburg, and they've got an exciting. I think he's like 19 years old and he's scoring goals by the buckets worth. Be interesting to see if he makes it into his national team's lineup during the Euros over the next week or so. But Salzburg are at home against the Napoli team that we mentioned earlier. Right now, you've got Napoli as this is a pick 'em on the 2-way line. Napoli on the 3-way line are plus 152. Salzburg is plus 167. The draw is 291, and the over/under, rightly so, is 3.5. Napoli come off that scoreless draw at Genk, and Salzburg off that score fest at Anfield against Liverpool, where they lost like 4-3. What are your thoughts here?
I love Salzburg. As you mentioned, we were both actually had a top play on them in that opening match, which I think they won 6-2. I think was the final score. But they're awesome. They remind me of Ajax from last year, who just press forward, love to score goals. Awesome team to watch. I mean, if you're new to watching football at all, it's one of those teams that you would not be bored when you turn on the TV and get to watch one of their games. There aren't many teams that can say they go 3 goals down at Anfield and come back to tie that up. Now, I know they ultimately lost 3-4 at Liverpool in their last match, but just to be able to say that they came back was pretty dang impressive. Haaland, who you're speaking of, the 19-year-old just stud, he didn't actually come on until I think it was like the 50, somewhere in the 50s, 50-minute mark, 58-minute mark, something like that. Scored within 5 minutes of coming on. I'm not 100% sure actually why he did not start that match. And obviously you could argue that was a hindrance for them in the first half where they went down 3-0. But I love that their side. They're a fun team to watch. You already mentioned Napoli does not travel well in this competition. They're having the same problem, domestically right now as well, where they drew at Torino last week. They went to Genk, like you said, couldn't score a goal. They've actually got 3 out of their last 4 goals, or excuse me, 3 out of their last 4 games, they've went scoreless. So right now, I feel like they're just lacking that killer instinct up front. They're not able to convert the chances they are creating. And, as much as Salzburg likes to score, if you're sitting there and you're struggling to score and your confidence isn't there on that side, I feel like it's going to be hard for Napoli to keep pace. I mean, even Liverpool couldn't, slow Salzburg's attack down enough. So I don't know if Napoli necessarily is going to be able to do that. So I like the two-way line, as you mentioned. If this game ends in a draw, there is no blood lost here if we take Salzburg on the two-way line at +0. So I really like them at home. I can't wait to see the game when Liverpool come to town to play Salzburg. And this will be an exciting one too. But I like the home side here, Salzburg. I'm rooting for them this year. I think they have a decent chance still coming out of this group. They got to win this match. And then I think it may be tough for Napoli actually in that situation. So we'll see what happens. But I like Salzburg here.
Yeah, with pretty much match day 3 and match day 4 are reverse fixtures with these games. So then, these same 2 sides will return to Italy and play Naples on match day 4. But he's Nick Borrman. I'm Carmine Bianco, and standing by there patiently is Pavlos, Laguretos. He's going to handle some Europa League soon. MLS playoffs are right around the corner. I'm excited about it because I am a season ticket holder for Toronto FC. I was at their game on decision day this past Sunday. They won 1-0 over Columbus and took the 4th spot in the group. So they'll host a home game on the 19th of October, which is the openings, Saturday the 19th, the opening of the MLS Cup playoffs. If you head over to Sports Memo to Nick Borman's page, you can get 30 days of soccer for $99. It's an MLS 99 package, but you don't need a coupon. You head over there, you click on 30 days. You get it for $99. You're going to get every single play, obviously, in the playoffs for MLS. You're also going to get every other soccer play, Champions League, Europa League, the domestic leagues like EPL, La Liga, Bundesliga, League One, Serie A. Nick always has plays up on the weekend. And this package for $99, listen, this includes all 5% plays, which are regularly priced at $40. And I believe Nick has a 5% play loaded already. So this is a good deal. Head over to Sports Memo, click on Nick's profile page and find that package. All right, guys, we're going to head over to Europa. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to call it the Champions League little sister, the competition, but still a very good one. A ton of teams. And if you're unfamiliar with the Europa League, it's the same format, group stages. But when they head to the knockout stages, the teams that finished 3rd in the Champions League actually transform over or move over to the Europa League competition and have a chance to win that. So it's kind of important for teams to try and finish at least 3rd in Champions League to stay in European play. With me is from WagerTalk.com, Paulie Laguretos. Paulie, welcome.
Hello, Carm. Hello, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Listen, match day 2, I thought there was only a couple surprises. Again, another Italian team who does not carry their form over. This is I sound like a broken record player at times. Roma went on the road and drew away to Wolfsburger. Probably not a result they were looking for. I think if you want to take control of your group, you need to string together some wins. They're also struggling a little bit in Serie A. There's not a lot of teams other than, let's say, Juventus and Inter Milan, who those 2 teams played this past weekend in the Italian Derby, and it was quite a fixture. Let me tell you, it finished 2-1 for Juve. I didn't catch the game until a little later in the evening because I was at the MLS playoffs. And the other game, the Manchester United. I don't know what is wrong with this team. It is unbelievable what is happening with this team. They went on the road, scoreless draw against AZ Alkmaar. And it doesn't get any easier for them after this international break. They've got Liverpool on tap next in the EPL. So I think there's some major changes coming for this team when we get to the winter transfer window, and whether it's players going out, players coming in, we could see a manager going out. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of Ole out stuff trending on Twitter, and it's just that team just doesn't seem cohesive right now. But listen, I'm going to throw Manchester United at you right off the bat. They're away to Partizan, and listen, it's traveling to Serbia is never it's never an easy trip to start with, and Partizan are playing well. United are favored here. They're plus 122. Partizan is plus 234. The draw is 244. And the over-under is a low line at a split line of 2.5. What are your thoughts here?
I think Manchester United are rebuilding this season. They sold off most of their best players. Pogba is left behind, and I think he's really asking for a transfer. I don't think they will be reinforced in the transfer window. I think they'll be weakened. I think they'll probably sell off their 1-2 great players they have, and then buy some more youngsters or give chances to other younger players that already are in the roster, because we now see them. They play Rashford up front. They play James at the wing. They play a very young squad, and I think they follow what other big teams from the Premier League are doing, like Chelsea, and they're on to a full rebuild. So for this match, I'm not very sure about Manchester United, because looking at their last 5 fixtures in all competitions, they won none, actually. They have 3 draws and 2 losses. To make matters worse, they have not won yet on the road in 5 matches in all competitions. 4 matches for the Premier League and 1 match for the Europa League were all... They only scored 2 goals in 5 matches. They still haven't won on the road this season. And let's take a look at the home side. Partizan is a Serbian side. They're one of the 2 top sides in Serbia for the past, couple of decades. They are really strong, especially at home. They have a very loud crowd. They have this, this Balkan blood in their
Yes, they
veins.
do.
They are always very, very loud and very supportive of the team. And it can be intimidating, especially to a younger side that is Manchester United, because Solskjaer mostly uses younger players, especially in the Europa League. For example, in his last match, he used Greenwood up front, Gomez, James, Diogo Dalot, Williams. All these are players who are between 20 and 22 years old. They don't have the experience to avoid being intimidated by such a loud crowd. So I don't think this looks very good for Manchester United. And looking at the odds, I wouldn't be surprised if Partizan actually they can hold out for a draw. They could win. They could win. Really, I really believe it. But the odds are now the spread is at 0.25.
Yeah, so a quarter goal, yeah.
A quarter goal. I think I'll take my chances with that.
All right, yeah.
Because
and listen, I agree with you. So Partizan getting it's like on the 2A line, it's a pick'em, split line of a pick'em and plus a half a goal. So you get a sort of a wager on both. And no, I agree. If Partizan are able to break through first, I don't think the way they're playing right now, and given that I don't see Ole fielding his full regular 11 on away in a game like this, considering they have 4 points in the group already, based on that 1-0 win, I think, on match day 1. They could struggle to try and come back here. This team, we keep waiting for them to turn it around, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. There are teams that sometimes can never recover from a bad start. We've seen it in League One the last couple of years with Monaco, who, the Monaco game plan was to buy cheap, build the players up, sell high with like guys like Mbappe and what. But it hasn't worked this year, and they very well could get relegated. But I don't want to go off on a tangent. I want to head to the next game. We're heading to Russia for this one. CSK Moscow and Ferencváros. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple lines on this one. CSK is on three-way line, minus 198. The away side is 537 plus 537. The draw is plus 345. The total is split line of 2.5, 3. Or if you want to bet the two-way line, you can bet CSK, lay a goal, and $1.15 juice. Your thoughts here?
I'm actually surprised that CSK haven't won a match yet, because they've lost both matches in this group. They scored just one goal and conceded 7, which is mostly due to the destructive loss in match day 1 to Ludogorets. Lost 5-1 on the road. I don't know how the Russian side is they're usually very good. They are one of the 2 top sides. They used to be the top side in Russia for many years. They collect all the domestic talent. They have a lot of, let's say, they have the best Russian players in their squads, usually, with a mix of international players. They're usually very good. They have a lot of experience, both in the Champions League and in the Europa League. And it's really weird that they have lost both matches so far, because looking at their other competitions, they only have one other loss so far in the season, or 2. They are very strong at home. I don't know how they lost to Espanyol. I was just about to bet on that match for CSKA to win, but they somehow lost to a struggling Espanyol side. I don't know how that happened. Espanyol also had a tough match coming up just a few days later, so I really thought the Russians would win this one, but they ended up losing at home without even scoring, which is very weird to me. So, looking at the standings, Ludogorets are first with 6 points, Espanyol are second with 4 points, Ferencváros are third with 1 point, and CSKA Moscow are last in the group with 0 points. So, I'm expecting that to change. I expect them to snap out of it in this home match. I think they can cover the spread, because the visitors are pretty solid on the road, but they don't have as much experience in the competition as the host side.
Right.
So I'm taking the hosts to cover the spread on this one. I think it's really nice.
Okay, he is Paulie Laguretos of WagerTalk.com. We've got a promo up for him. You can get, he usually posts a lot of action in Euro basketball, but also Champions League, Europa League, your domestic leagues like EPL, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, League One, and of course MLS. You can get an all-access package, 30 days of his plays in every sport for only $199. It's regularly $325. Just click on that 30-day package, enter the code EURO199, and get all of his plays for 30 days. And we've got a lot of soccer coming up, and of course Euroball as well too. So if you're one of those guys who likes daily action, this is the package that you want to get, because you'll get a lot for it. And of course it includes all 5% plays. All right, we have one more game for you before we close off this show. PSV at Las Links. The game is at PSV Eindhoven. They're minus 182. Links is plus 465. The draw is plus 348, and the total is 3. or you can get the two-way line and lay a goal with PSV. They are perennial top of their league, typically along with Ajax. They battle for those top two spots. What are your thoughts here quickly?
PSV has done a great job so far. They won both matches. They won their last game at Rosenborg, which is always a tough venue to play and a tough team to play against. They won 4-1 on the road, which was actually a statement regarding who is the best team in this group. Sporting Lisbon and Rosenborg could challenge PSV in this group, but PSV have won both matches so far, and even though the visitors, Linz, are a very impressive side, I would say, they started off at the Champions League qualifiers actually, but somehow relegated to the Europa League, if that's even considered a relegation. They won their first match against Rosenborg by a 1 goal at home, and then in the match day 2 they lost by 1-2 against Sporting, but they took the lead and they were actually very good in that match. They pretty much dominated Sporting in every aspect of the game, but they sadly conceded twice in a 5-minute span in the second half and eventually lost. But they did play very good. They usually score at least once in all their matches, in most of their matches. So I do see PSV winning this one, but I think that Linz will score. So I would steer away from backing the home team here, and I'd rather go with the over 3 goals because I think that Linz can definitely score at least once here. And looking at PSV's home matches this season, all 8 matches except one had at least 4 goals.
Yeah, no,
So they score a lot at home, and they do concede a lot of not a lot of goals. They do concede sometimes, and I think that Linz will surely score here. So I think the over 3 is a very solid bet on this match.
No, I tend to agree, and obviously with any time you're taking one of these totals, an early goal in a game tends to open that one up. So I've got you marked down for over 3, and we'll come back to these on our next show. I'm Carmine Bianco. That's Paulie Laguretos, Nick Borrman. Again, you can get Nick's MLS. And all of his other plays the next 30 days, up to and including the MLS Cup Final on November the 10th. For $99, you can get Paulie's 30 days of all of his plays using the promo code EURO199. Head over to my page at WagerTalk. I've got some promos up. I've been on a great run as far as it's another winning year in soccer. I had a good year last year. 5% plays have been doing really well. 11, 2, and 1. My last 14 5% soccer releases. I've got one loaded, so head over to WagerTalk.com and you can get that. Guys, listen. Next week's show, Champions League, MLS playoffs. I want to thank you guys for coming on the show, and good luck to all of you.
Thanks, Carb.
Thanks, Carb.